chapter 41. Got people walking back and forth in the kitchen, people out there getting coffee. Oh, now you're making it a mocha. He was walking back and forth. Becca's back there making herself a mocha.
I was locking the door.
Like you're supposed to.
No. I'm over here so you can't see me.
Genesis 41. All right, so when we come to these chapters, it's one of those things where the story tells itself. We're going to read a lot, read quickly, skip one paragraph. But we're coming up on some, I think, some pretty fun studies and chapters. I went to look again today, famous atheist, Penn Jillette. Is it all right if I teach a lesson without a jacket on? All right. I don't think these really match anyway now that I put them on. Right, Matt? He's like, I was going to say something. All right. They look good?
No, that's a good class.
Oh, thank you. What's the flattery for? You want the Bible study to be shorter? Wow. Okay. Penn Jillette, famous atheist, and he grew up in a Christian home, went to church, and but he posted things online, and we complain about Christians grabbing verses out of context and just throwing them up. He does the same thing, occasionally bringing up good points, but many times he's off. There's one particular video where he talked about there's no evidence that the Israelites were ever in Egypt, none whatsoever. And then he goes off on something else, and then he comes back and says, oh, by the way, when the Israelites left Egypt, they went through the Reed Sea, not the Red Sea. Okay, but I thought you said just a minute ago they weren't in Egypt, then why would they have to cross anything? But then, if you don't believe that if the Israelites crossed the Red Sea, they crossed the Reed Sea, and you know what I'm about to say, then the miracle is that the Egyptian army drowned in ankle-deep water. So pick your miracle. God split the Red Sea, and the Israelites went across. But you have a couple problems here. I found actually a couple things that I'm not too happy about. I'm going to show them to you. Well, Acts chapter 7, verse 36, lest you're wondering, is in Greek, obviously New Testament. Stephen, when he preached before the council, said he brought them out. After that, he had showed wonders and signs in the land of Egypt and in the Red Sea and in the wilderness 40 years. So the New Testament writers, through guidance of the Holy Spirit, were under yes, Old Testament, read and read aren't too far off. However, New Testament, still saying Red Sea, Hebrews chapter 11, verse 29, by faith they passed through the Red Sea as by dry land, which the Egyptians essayed to do were drowned. So the New Testament's pretty clear on this. This is one of those things where you can go ahead and say, well, we don't believe that exactly happened. Well, then you have a problem. The New Testament writers believed it. Well, just believe the New Testament. We believe just believe Jesus, but don't believe the old account, the Genesis account. And then Jesus actually talks about the Genesis account as if it's fact, and you have a problem. But I found something else today, and I think if you have a Bible with you today with maps, do me a favor. Go find the maps. If you don't, that's fine. And find the route of the Exodus. Do you have that? I'll bet you almost anything that your Bible does not show crossing the Red Sea. I had to go find a super old Bible to show anything that crossed the Red Sea. Any of you see? Now remember, the Red Sea is the two Gulf of Aqaba, Gulf of Suez, Gulf of Aqaba is the Red Sea. It's just the different gulfs in it. Does anybody have anybody crossing the sea? you, Brandon?
Where is it? Where is it again? The Red Sea? Because
The Red Sea is what surrounds the Sinai Peninsula on the bottom.
Gulf of Suez.
Yeah, the Gulf of Suez. Well, the Gulf of Aqaba, I think, is where they cross, but you'll have some people tell you the Gulf of Suez. But however, your map in your Bible probably tells you they didn't cross either.
Why hasn't crossed the Gulf?
Across the middle.
Never crossing the Suez.
Does it have actually crossing the water?
Yeah.
Nice. Anybody else?
Mine has crossed over on the west side of the sun. I don't know.
Yeah, it's crossing above the water, right?
No, it's actually the water. The line goes in the water.
The line goes in the water? Well, remember the Suez Canal wasn't there. Okay. So that was kind of disheartening, and then I thought, you know what? I'll go back and see what the Trusted Baker's Bible Atlas shows in maps. It says Reed Sea. You know how many times I referred back to this thing? And the reason I probably didn't catch it before is it doesn't say it like, well, you know, the Bible got it wrong here. It actually just talks about Red Sea as if it's fact. And I read that. I wasn't too happy about that. Then, pull out your trusty NIV, said with sarcasm. Exodus 15:4 says this: Pharaoh's chariots and his army he has hurled into the sea. The best of Pharaoh's officers are drowned in the Red Sea, talking about the song of Moses and Miriam. And there's a little A next to it. And we go down here. Hebrew, Yam Surf, that is, Sea of Reeds. Also in verse 22. And we wonder why people pick this up again and think, well, the Bible can't be true. It says right down here there's a contradiction. Well, there's so many contradictions in this thing. Then you go over to John chapter 8, it has a verse that says it shouldn't be there. Mark chapter 16 says a whole bunch of verses shouldn't be there. I wonder why people laugh at us. And you know what you think about it? Well, silliness. And yet, we're getting ahead of ourselves because we're not even in Egypt yet. We're still, Joseph's in Egypt, but, nobody else is yet. So, I had a couple questions answered for me this week in this study, and I'm pretty stoked about it. I'm going to read the story, but I've always had kind of a little bit, I don't care what kind of dream there is. Why would a pharaoh look at somebody who just got pulled out of prison and say, you're my number 2 man now? Yes, I get it. God, revealed the dream. But there's more to it than that I didn't know about until this week. And it's been in front of my face this entire time. You're going to love this. It's good stuff. You ready? Matter of fact, Exodus chapter 1, verse 8, says, there arose a Pharaoh in Egypt that knew not Joseph. And so then all of a sudden, the whole opinion of Egypt changed towards Joseph, towards the Israelites, and there's an answer to that question. Why did it change so quickly? And we're going to come up on that. Matter of fact, I learned something. Have you ever heard of the Hyksos kings? Matter of fact, let's cover that. So pull up the first one on the Hyksos kings here. I'll read it right off the screen for you. So the Hyksos, dynasty of Palestinian origin that ruled northern Egypt as the 15th dynasty. You see that there. The name Hyksos was used by the Egyptian historian Manetho, who according to Jewish historian Flavius Josephus, translated the words as king shepherds or captive shepherds. Josephus himself wished to demonstrate the great antiquity of the Jews and thus identified the Hyksos with the Hebrews of the Bible. We're rejecting that, just so you know. This king was not Hebrew. However, Hyksos was in fact probably an Egyptian term for rulers of foreign lands. And it almost certainly designated the foreign dynasties rather than the ethnic group. Which, by the way, this is off Britannica.com. This is a secular source talking about Egyptian history. And so, just because Josephus believes something doesn't mean we do. And it almost certainly designates foreign dynasties rather than an ethnic group. Modern scholarship has identified most of the Hyksos kings' names as what? Semitic. If you're anti-Semitic, what are you? You're against the Jews. And so now all of a sudden, we come to find out the kings of this period were Semitic, not Egyptian. Go to the next slide. This is off my wall. So you see here Shem. Shem and Japheth would be further on. Shem would be the Egyptians, or I'm sorry, the Israelites, through Abraham. But wait, here's the Egyptians. And then see right above, wait, where'd it go? Yeah. Oh, see that name right there? Hyksos. It's been on my wall this entire time and I didn't ever see it. So, now let's go to the next one. Ooh. Just to show you the Hyksos, I had to zoom in quite a bit and then make it, TV size. So there you go. Sorry about it being badly written. So go back to blank screen. So, as he's being told, there's a guy in this prison, he's a Hebrew, then he comes out. This Pharaoh is actually more closely related to Joseph than he is the Egyptians. And it was known for it to be hard for the pharaohs to find people who would be loyal to them because they were foreigners. They were like cousins. And they only ruled for, I think it's like 108 years. Who knew? It was right there in front of me. And so, that's the Bible study for tonight. Let's go ahead and fill it in with other stuff now. All right, so Pharaoh has a dream. Remember, his butler was in prison a couple weeks ago. Actually, a couple years ago. But we talked about it a couple weeks ago. Look, pick it up in verse 1. It came to pass at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river. And behold, there came up out of the river 7 well-favored kine and fat flesh. That kine is talking about cows. And they fed the meadow. Nice, serene, fat cows. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them out of the river, ill-favored and lean flesh, and stood by the other kine upon the brink of the water. And the ill-flavored, lean fresh kine did eat up the 7 well-favored and fat kine, so Pharaoh awoke. And he slept and dreamed a second night. Behold, 7 ears of corn came up with one stalk, rank and good. And behold, 7 thin ears, and blasted with the east wind, sprang up after them. And the 7 thin ears devoured the 7 rank and full ears. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. So, when we come to later references of this, we will not read the dream over again, just so you know. So he's awoken, and he's, he just had a dream. Now again, God can use any means, but this is what he used. And I want you to notice something. Here, Joseph was in a prison for years. He was in Potiphar's house as a servant for years. As a matter of fact, a total of 13 years. And yet he still gives glory to God. When bad things happen to us, we've got to remember that. When we're waiting for years for an answer to prayer, Joseph was about to be the number 2 in a country, and here he was waiting for 2 years after. This is after the dream. He'd already been put in the charge, so he's already been in prison for a while. Remember, he's in prison for something he didn't do. Verse 8. Of course, he was at Potiphar's house because his brothers didn't like him. Verse 8. And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt and all the wise men thereof. And Pharaoh told him his dream, but there was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh. Now Pharaoh's being kind of, he's being kind here. Because remember, Nebuchadnezzar said, "Hey, no, you tell me the dream and interpret it." And at least Pharaoh's given a fair shot. Then spake the chief butler unto Pharaoh, saying, "I do remember my faults this day." I think that's probably, can you imagine, the butler walking around the house, when am I going to bring this up with Pharaoh? There's this other kid, told me this stuff, but now there comes the time 2 years later. I don't think that he just remembered today. Could be. Pharaoh was wroth with his servants, put me in a ward in the captain of the guard's house, both me and the chief baker. And he dreamed a dream, and we dreamed a dream, and one night, I and he, we dreamed each man according to the interpretation of his dream. And there was with us a young man, and Hebrew. See that right there? Caught Pharaoh's attention. Servants and the captain of the guard, and we told him, and he interpreted to us our dreams. To each man according to his dream did he interpret. And it came to pass, as he interpreted to us, so it was, me he restored in mine office, and him he hanged. And when Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon, and he shaved himself. So now if you look at ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, Egyptian art, you very rarely see him with a beard. Jews at this time would have beards. Changed his raiment, came into Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, there is none that can interpret it, and I have heard say of thee that thou canst understand the dream and interpret it. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not me, God shall give Pharaoh an answer. And so, still, if I was Joseph, I'd be bitter right now, man. I've been rotting in that jail cell for two years. I'd be pointing at the butler. Matter of fact, he's about to be number 2 in the country. What do you think he's going to do to Butler? Well, probably nothing, because he's that kind of guy. What's he going to do to Pharaoh and Pharaoh's wife? Nothing. But wouldn't it be nice? Hey, I'm sorry, not Pharaoh. Potiphar. And Potiphar's wife. Hey, Potiphar, come here, I got something to tell you. And an answer in peace. Pharaoh said to Joseph, In my dream, behold, I stood to bank the river. Now here's the repeat of the dream. We'll go ahead and skip that. Here's the interpretation. And Joseph said to Pharaoh, the dream of Pharaoh is one. God has shown Pharaoh what he's about to do. The 7 good kine, cows are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dream is one. And the 7th thin and ill-favored kind that came up after the year are the 7 years, and the 7 empty years, blast of the east wind, shall be 7 years of famine. So it's 7 years of plenty, 7 years of famine. Behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout the land of Egypt, and there shall arise after them 7 years of famine. And all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land. The interesting thing about the famine, Egypt, it doesn't rain there anyways. Egypt relies on the Nile River and irrigates from it. So it's kind of interesting. A lot of different countries around them. But the Bible makes this sound like it was all the countries of the world. But they're going to have to come to Egypt. And the plenty shall not be known in the land of Egypt by reason of that famine following, for it shall be very grievous. And for that the dream was doubled on Pharaoh twice, because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. Now that makes you think, do the dreams I have any significance? And the answer for me to you is no, but if you feel they do, they do. All right. Angela, you want to tell us about yours? No? Okay. Now therefore let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. And so now Joseph is going to look at Pharaoh and tell Pharaoh, here's what you do. This isn't even part of the dream. It's just, here you find Joseph is a man blessed of God, an able man. Now therefore let Pharaoh look at a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up a 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years. And the Egyptians are going to have so much. Yeah, take a fifth. Who cares? That's a 20% tax rate, and going to be taken from everybody. And let them gather all the food of those good years to come, and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh, and let him keep food in the cities. So see, their food in the cities would be for good, easy distribution. I was reading an article, matter of fact, that somebody mentioned regarding this. They talk about the soup lines during the Depression, how they would go. And it wasn't necessarily that there was a lack of food. There was food. It's just that dispersion was a problem. Dispersion? Distribution. Distribution was more of a problem than anything. And so you're keeping it in the cities and not outside. And that food shall be in store in the land against 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, and the land perish not through the famine. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh, and the eyes of his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, Can we find such one as this? Is a man in whom the Spirit of God is. And so even Pharaoh recognizes this. And Pharaoh said, Joseph, for as much as God hath showed thee all of this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Again, we're talking about a Hebrew, not an Egyptian. Thou shalt be over my house, or according unto thy word shall my people be ruled, only in the throne shall be greater than thou. And so Joseph, this is a common theme, promoted to second in the country, house, prison 3 times. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, See, I've set thee over the land of Egypt. Sorry, I think I just read that twice. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it on Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. And so there you go, Ethan. You know, you and Joseph both have the gold chains.
Well played.
Thank you. But what the ring is, and I'm sure you know this, is that what would happen is they would have the ring and it would have a seal on it, and it would be, instead of making the signature, a document would have wax stripped on it, and then he'd put the ring against it, and that would be the Pharaoh's seal. So now the Pharaoh has handed his signature off to somebody and trusts him completely, hands it to Joseph. Imagine that. And he made him to ride in the second chariot, so propaganda showing, which I'm saying this not in a negative way, but, letting the people know, which he had, and they cried before him, bowed the knee, and made him rule over all the land of Egypt. Because if you put him in the second chariot, he's now going to be going to your house and being in charge, asking for 20% of your stuff, your food. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, I am Pharaoh, without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh called Joseph's name. Who wants to try it? Zaphnath-Paneah. What do you got, Joe?
Sounds good to me.
Zaphnath-Paneah. Matter of fact, I forgot to put down what that means. God will show, God will reveal. What? Revealer. Thank you. Is that in your notes, or did you just know that? You just know it? Okay. They teach Egyptian out there trying to learn it. And some of you, you should have gone that. You could go, you could name your kid Zaph. You could name your kid Nath. Name him Pan. You call him Zaniah for short. And gave him to wife Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar. They really like that Potiphar type name. Priest of On, and Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went through all the land of Egypt. So 17 years, and tells his brothers, so he's 17 years old when he was sold, and now 2 years in prison after the dreams. So that leaves 11 years to be divided between Potiphar's house and prison. It wasn't a short stint in either place. 11 years before the dreams. All right, 47. And the 7 plenteous years the earth brought forth by handfuls, and he gathered up all the food of the 7 years, which are in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities, and the food in the field, and which was round about every city, laid he up the same. And Joseph gathered corn as the sand of the sea, very much, until he left numbering, for it was without number. And unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of famine, which Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bare unto him. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for God said, He hath made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. He's moving on. So Joseph does carry some painful memories, obviously. He just doesn't carry the bitterness that goes with it. And then you notice the name of the second. The name of the second called he Ephraim. Now, if you remember, when you talk about the 12 tribes of Israel, there's no Joseph. Joseph gets a double portion. His sons get it. There's the tribe of Manasseh and the tribe of Ephraim. And that's where these two come from. For God hath caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. So he's grown, he's moved on, and he's been fruitful. Painful memories, but he's still moving on. And that could be a helpful reminder for all of us. And the 7 years of plenteous, that was in the land of Egypt, were ended. The 7 years of dearth began to come, according to as Joseph said, and the dearth was in all lands. But in the land of Egypt there was bread. So it was everywhere. And again, the Nile changes things a little bit, but still, even Egypt's going to have this dearth. And all the land of Egypt was famished. The people cried to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said to all the Egyptians, Go to Joseph, what he saith to you, do. And the famine was all over the face of the earth. And Joseph opened all the storehouses, sold unto the Egyptians. And the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt. And all the countries came unto Egypt to Joseph to buy corn, because the famine was so sore in all lands. Now, one thing that we're going to do, we'll go ahead and talk about it now instead of when it actually happens. But what happens is, so the people come to Joseph and sell him their lands for corn. And so through all this, through the portions, Egypt ends up being completely sold. All the famine, all the land becomes Pharaoh's. And then after a while they came back and said, you know what, we have nothing. We sell ourselves. And so then themselves, and so then all of Egypt was united and brought together under one, their one ownership. And by the way, the Bible is not condoning that and saying what we need to do. He's just stating here's what happened. And so all of Egypt became Pharaoh's. He bought all of it through Joseph. All the people of Egypt became Pharaoh's. And it became an ownership then instead of a leadership. And of course something we should all avoid at any cost. All right, any questions on chapter 41? How do you feel about 3 chapters now? Again, these stories tell themselves, so I can only give a couple pointers in here. Skip repeats where they are, which I did. I saved us a good, 40 seconds by doing that. On to 42. Hey, and if you didn't do your Bible reading today, this is 3 chapters. Bam. Did it. If we do it. At least you got one done. All right, chapter 42 then. When Jacob saw that there was corn in Egypt, Jacob said unto his sons, why do you look one upon another? All right, so to be clear, Joseph, okay, now we're talking about Jacob. Jacob is Israel. Jacob has 12 sons. And Joseph was sold. Joseph was the favorite. Joseph was the favorite from the favorite of 4 wives. And the favorite thing is going to come up even worse in the next 2 chapters, by the way. And so now we're back to Jacob. He's looking at his sons. Why are you standing here looking at each other? And he said, behold, I've heard there's corn in Egypt. Get ye down thither and buy from us from thence, and we may live and not die. I forgot something. I didn't put it in my notes. I need to go back. One other comparison between Joseph and Jesus. Joseph stood before Pharaoh in Egypt at the age of 30. Jesus began his earthly ministry at 30. And it says about 30. And so notice also here, Jacob is told that there's food in Egypt, but when does faith come along? Faith comes when he actually goes, right, or sins. And Joseph's 10 brethren went down to buy corn in Egypt. Now, but Benjamin, Joseph's brother, Jacob sent not with his brethren, for he said, lest peradventure mischief befall him. So favoritism still reigns. Joseph and Benjamin are both the sons of Leah. And so now we have Benjamin the youngest. How many of you are the favorite in your house? Right there. Becca, favorite?
My favorite not.
Okay. I was the favorite. And but was there hands back there?
I was scratching my nose.
Oh, okay. And no hands for us? I'm sorry, that's a bad joke. We have to have birthday parties for this guy, right? We're glad to do it. So you can compare yourself here to Simeon. Oh. Anyways, Benjamin here is at least 13 years old, probably much older. We could go as high as 22 in age. But however, so all of you go down, but you're going to keep Benjamin here unless something happens to all of you. Benjamin's here. It gets worse here in a minute. We'll see if we get down that far. And the sons of Israel came to buy corn among those that came, and the famine was in the land of Canaan. Joseph was the governor over all the land, and he said it was the soul to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brethren came and bowed down themselves before him with their faces to the earth. So now the dream is fulfilled. We covered that back in 37. And Joseph saw his brethren, and he knew them. He made himself strange unto them, and spoke roughly unto them. And he said to them, whence come ye? And they said, from the land of Canaan to buy food. So he's speaking, by the way, we're going to find this out in a minute. He's speaking Egyptian to them through an interpreter. And he's also shaved, although he would have been shaved probably at 17. I don't know. Some people grow beards at 17. Some can. I could. But anyways, keep on going. Joseph knew his brethren, and they knew him not. Joseph remembered the dreams which he dreamed of them. So now he's remembered. And he said to them, ye are spies to see the nakedness of the land, ye are come. So what he's doing now is he's starting a play. He notices Benjamin's not there. He has to find out if his dad is alive. He has to find out where Benjamin is. But he can't do that by saying, hey, don't you have another brother? You know, he's about to play the crowd real quick, and he's going to make him squirm. Which is, I think, is merciful compared to what he could have done here. Verse 11. We are all one man's sons. We are true men. Thy servants are no spies. He said to them, nay, but to see the nakedness of the land ye are come. And they said, thy servants are 12 brethren. Oh. You know, I know this is what's going on, but at the same time, remember, you don't have to tell everybody everything. You know, so when you shut doors before you get there, you don't have to talk about every subject in the Bible. You know, keep to relevant facts in conversations where it matters. And somebody's in sales taught me that somewhere, I can't remember where it was. And Joseph said to them okay, I'm sorry, I didn't read the rest of the verse. The sons of one man in the land of Canaan, behold, the youngest is this day with our father, and one is not. Of course, they can't even make it, they wouldn't even dream that Joseph, who they don't even know, is going to say, well, I'm going to need you to see your youngest brother in order to believe you. There's no way for them to know that. But still. Hereby shall you be proved, by the life of Pharaoh ye shall not go forth thence, except your youngest brother come thither. Send one of you, and let us fetch your brother, and you shall be kept in prison, that your words may be proved, whether there be any truth in you, or else by the life of Pharaoh surely ye are spies. So immediately he takes all of them and locks them up, and says, hey, one of you needs to go back, but nobody volunteers to do so. And so 3 days go by. And verse 19, if you be true men, let one of your brethren be bound in the house of your prison. Go ye, carry corn for the famine of your houses, but bring your youngest brother unto me, so shall your words be verified, ye shall not die. And they did so. And they said one to another, we are very guilty concerning our brother. So now they're speaking to each other, probably in Hebrew, not understanding that Joseph can understand them. And that we saw the anguish of his soul when he besought us, and that we would not hear. Therefore is this distress come upon us. Reuben answered them, saying, spake not I unto you? So this is 13 years ago. Reuben's, hey, I told you guys. I told you. Do not sin against the child, and you would not hear. Therefore, behold, also his blood is required. And they knew not that Joseph understood them, for he spake unto them by an interpreter. And he turned himself about from them, and wept, and returned to them again, and communed with them. So again, remember the awkwardness of the situation. Sometimes you have to embrace the awkward. Here, Joseph does just that. He just looks at him. I believe he's stoic. He's speaking in Egyptian, speaking through an interpreter. He knows everything's being said. He just turns around and walks off. What are they going to do? Leave? He walks off, and he goes and weeps here, and returned to them again and communed with them, and took from them Simeon, and bound him before their eyes. And then Joseph commanded to fill their sacks with corn, and to restore every man's money into a sack, and give them provision for the way, and this did he unto them. Now you think, you leave Winco, and your receipts in there shows you paid. But however, and you paid with a debit card, but now also the cash is in there. You know it wasn't, what's this doing in here? All the cash, you filled grocery carts full of stuff, could barely afford it. Now you're leaving and the cash is in there. What do you do? Well, for us, it'd be like, yeah, maybe I need to go back in. Here, if they go back in, now all of a sudden the food doesn't get back home, and all that's going to be stolen, and all taken, and we're all going to be put in prison. Slightly different than Winco, right? Winco, you can say, hey, this was an oversight. Nah, not in this case. And he said unto his brethren, my money is restored, and lo, is even in my sack, and that their heart failed them, and they were afraid, saying one to another, what is this that God hath done unto us? And they came unto Jacob their father, so they didn't turn around and go back. They went home. And the land of Canaan went and told them all that befell unto them, saying, and I believe, if memory serves, we're talking about an 11-day journey back and forth. The man who is the Lord of the land, so now they're talking to Jacob, speaking of Joseph, spoke roughly unto us and took some spies in the country. He said to them, and we said to him, we are true men, we are no spies. We be 12 brethren, sons of our father, one is not, the youngest is this day with our father in the land of Canaan. And so you can just kind of see Jacob looking at him like, why'd you tell him this? And the man, the Lord of the country, said to us, hereby shall I know that you're, leave one of your brethren here with me and take food for the family of your household to be gone. And so, kind of funny here, if you want to really think about this. Bring your younger brother unto me, that then shall I know that you are no spies, but that you are true men. So will I deliver unto you your brother, and you shall traffic in the land. And it came to pass as they emptied their sacks, behold, every man's bundle of money was in the sack. And when both they and their father saw the bundles of money, they were afraid. Yep, this isn't Winco. And Jacob, their father, said to them, have ye bereaved of my children? Joseph had not, Simeon is not. You will take Benjamin away. All these things are against me. Joseph had a better attitude about everything than Jacob did. Do you see yourself here as Jacob or Joseph? I see myself as Jacob. I have all this stuff, good stuff going on, and one bad thing happens, everything's against me. Do you ever do that? Everything's against me. The smallest thing happens. And but now Joseph, he's in prison for 2 years, no big deal. He's in Potiphar's house. Well, actually, he's in Potiphar's house in prison, a grand total of 13 years. No big deal. I still serve God. Verse 37. And Reuben spake unto his father, saying, slay my 2 sons, if I bring him not to thee, deliver him into my hand, and I will bring him to thee again. And he said, my son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he is left alone. If mischief be fallen by the way, in the which ye go, then shall you bring down my gray hairs to the sorrow to the grave. So Reuben offers his own sons as sacrifice. Simeon's in prison in Egypt, and Jacob still won't send Benjamin. Can you imagine being Simeon down in Egypt? It's not that we're doing an exchange. It's that, hey, if you 9 brothers now will bring down the 10th and just bring them down here, we'll let Simeon go. And Jacob's thought, no, Simeon could rot. Why am I pointing that direction? Egypt would be that direction. Simeon could rot. And Reuben, I don't care about your 2 brats that you have over there. I don't want Benjamin to get hurt. Can you imagine the anger going around in this house? And we talked about that house Pharez thing. Yeah, it's even worse. Simeon can stay in prison. I'm not even going to chance Benjamin getting hurt. All right. So the next one's 34 verses. 15 minutes. Think so? I feel like I'm auctioned off something. You're supposed to do. Did they teach us some voice exercises in college? They didn't. They taught us to go practice, preaching on the forest and trees. Remember that? Most pointless thing ever. No, I didn't ever do it. Did you? Remember when Tom Menbeck dragged us out to do street preaching in Chicago? I know you didn't do that one. And I got dragged out. I got guilted out there. All right, let's go ahead and Genesis chapter 43. Again, are y'all okay with the pace? I mean, I could dig deeper, but the story tells itself. So I'm putting in some pointers here that I found in my notes and stuff, but the story tells itself. And the famine was sore in the land. It came to pass when they had eaten up the corn which they had bought out of Egypt, their father said to them, go again, buy us a little food. And Judah spake unto them, saying, the man did solemnly protest unto us, saying, ye shall not see my face, except your brother be with you. Again, hey, we can't go down. Jacob, or Dad, I don't know what you're not understanding about this. If you just let your little precious go down with us, we could go down and get some. But, no. If thou wilt send your brother with us, we will go down and buy thee food. But if thou wilt not send him, we will not go down. For the man said to us, ye shall not see my face, except your brother be with you. I would love to know how much time has passed. How much time has Simeon been in prison in Egypt? All by himself. And then, Joseph, peeking out the window every day, wondering where his brothers are. And verse 6, now, Jacob's bringing it up again. Wherefore dealt ye so ill with me, as to tell the man whether he had yet a brother? And they said, the man has the strength of our saint. And again, so he's asked him because he is trying to figure out what's going on back home. He had to do it in a way without saying, "Hey, I'm Joseph." And of our kindred saying, "Is our father yet alive? Have ye another brother?" And we told him according to the tenor of these words. Could we certainly know that he would say, "Bring your brother down"? And Judah said unto Israel's father, "Send the lad with me, and we will rise up and go, that we may live and not die, both we and thou, and also our little ones." And he still need to be convinced. "I will be surety for him. Of my hand shalt thou require him, if I bring him not unto thee, and set him before thee, and let me bear the blame forever. For except we had lingered, surely now we had returned this second time." So, he said, if you would have sent him down, we'd have been back by now. We'd already had food. We'd have been, eating right now. And what you're going to notice here, they had food, but just not enough of it. They didn't have the right kinds, apparently. And their father Israel stated to them, "If it must be so now, do this: take of the best fruits of the land of in your vessels," which isn't a cheap thing right now. You can't find good fruits. "Carry down the man a present, a little balm, a little honey, spices, myrrh, nuts, and almonds." So there's some of these things still around that they've kept. "And take double money in your hand, and the money that was brought again in the mouth of your sacks carried again in your hand. Peradventure, it was an oversight. Take also your brother, and rise, go again unto the man." So now you can take Benjamin. "And God Almighty give you mercy before the man, that he may send you away your other brother and Benjamin. If I be bereaved of my children, I am bereaved." If they're going to die, they're going to die. And the men took that present, took double money in their hand, and Benjamin rose up and went down to Egypt and stood before Joseph. When Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to the ruler of his house. Now the ruler of his house, I think, had become, became a Christian. You don't do that in the Old Testament. This guy was obviously a little bit in on it. "Bring these men home and slay, make ready, for these men shall dine with me at noon." And the man did as Joseph bade, and the man brought the men into Joseph's house. Now, you and me, we get invited to the White House. I don't care who the president is. You go to the White House, right? If you're invited, maybe you go to the Blue Room. Maybe you actually go to the dining room. You're going to take that as an honor, but not if you have a guilty conscience. Man, these guys are squirming. And the men were afraid. Wait, no. In this scenario, we're going to Vice President Harris's house. You might say yes to that still. I'm not sure. I don't remember where the vice president lives. And the men were afraid because they were brought into Joseph's house, and they said, "Because of the money that was returned in our sacks the first time we were brought in, that we may seek occasion against us and fall upon us and take us for bondmen and our asses." So everything. No, let's talk about donkeys. And they came near to the steward of Joseph's house, and they communed with him at the door of the house. So they're trying to, "Hey, what's going on here? Why are we at the house? Why are we here?" And they're trying to figure things out. And said, "Oh, sir, we came indeed at the first time to buy food. And it came to pass when we came to the inn," so they had Airbnbs on the way, by the way, "that we opened our sacks, behold, every man's money was in the mouth of their sack, our money in full weight, we have brought it again in our hand. And other money have we brought down in our hands to buy food. We cannot tell who put our money in our sacks." Now watch what the steward says. "And he said, Peace be unto you, fear not. Your God, the God of your father, hath given you treasure in your sacks. I had your money." I didn't even know what to come up with that. So the stewards now end on the mind game. I had your money. But wait, money was in the sack. You had our money. These guys' heads just got to be spinning. "And he brought Simeon out unto them." What do you think that conversation was at? "Where have you guys been? Dad, look, let's go." Back and forth, they're trying to smile all through this. And Simeon's like, "I've been in the prison for 6 months." And he looks at Benjamin, favorite. I posted a picture recently, and it's of a football game. I'm number 44, so it was my junior year. Clay, I was number 44 one year. Isn't that cool? And I was 26 another year. And Lisa's standing next to me. We had just played. I'm smiling, so apparently we won, so that's a rarity. But you see in the background, I've never noticed it before, but my mom's in the background. My sister commented on Facebook, LOL, and there is your mom in the background, knowing that I'm the favorite. It's a good thing, isn't it, Jeff? Jared's not arguing over there? And when Joseph came home, they brought him the present which was in the hand of their house, in their hand, into the house, and bowed themselves to him to the earth. Being fulfilled again. And he asked him of the welfare, and said, Is your father well? The old man of whom you spake, is he yet alive? Remember through an interpreter. And they answered, Thy servant, our father, is in good health. He is yet alive. And they bowed down their heads and made obeisance. There's the key word. And he lifted up his eyes and saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son, so his only full brother, and said, Is this your younger brother of whom you spake unto me? And he said, God be gracious unto thee, my son. And Joseph made haste, for his bowels did yearn upon his brother, and he sought where to weep, and he entered into his chamber and wept there. He washed his face and went out and refrained himself and said, Set on bread. So now it's interesting. Do me a favor, flip in your Bible to Zachariah. Go towards Matthew, then flip back. A couple books. Zachariah. So go. Zachariah is right before Malachi. So Joseph is about to reveal himself to his brethren. This to me is one of the better pictures between Joseph and Jesus Christ. Zechariah chapter 13, Jesus will reveal himself to his brethren one day, and his brethren being Israel, and the Jews will believe. Zechariah chapter 13, look at verse 6. And one shall say to him, What are these wounds in thine hands? Then he shall answer, those with which I was wounded in the house of my friends. Speaking of Israel, speaking of him being crucified. And then remember, this is also 430 years before the crucifixion, at least. Awake, O Lord, against my shepherd, against the man that is my fellow, saith the Lord of hosts. Smite the shepherd, and the sheep shall be scattered. Jesus referred to that, and it happened, and I will turn mine hand upon the little ones. And it shall come to pass that in the land, saith the Lord, 2 parts therein shall be cut off and die, but the third part shall be left therein. So we're talking now about the remnant. And I will bring the third part through the fire, and will refine them as silver is refined, and will try them as gold is tried. They shall call on my name, and I will hear them. I will say, It is my people, and they shall say, The Lord is my God. That remnant is talking about the Jews during the tribulation, I believe. So it's just interesting. Jesus will reveal himself to Israel, and Israel, the remnant, will believe. Let's go back to Genesis real quick. We got 4 minutes, and we have 3 verses to go. Can we do it? Verse 32. And they set out for himself, and for them by themselves, and for the Egyptians, which did eat with him by themselves, because the Egyptians might not eat bread with the Hebrews, for that is an abomination unto the Egyptians. Did you notice something there? The Hebrews ought to already be noticing. That says that Joseph was eating by himself. They know him to be a Hebrew. He's not eating with them. So it's Joseph. It's the 10 brothers. 10 brothers. And then the servants are eating separate from all of that. So you'd think that the brothers at some point would look over and say, You know what? Why are you eating separate? But however, he's probably beloved and probably exalted, so it'd probably be not as obvious, but it should have been a slight clue. And they sat before him, the firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth, and the men marveled one at another. Why did they marvel? It isn't that the men sat down in order, it's that Joseph had them placed in order. Imagine you go to sit down at a stranger's house, there's 10 of you, and you are sitting in birth order. And that's where the marveling comes in. Interesting. 11 here? Well, Joseph isn't with them.
There's 12 more. And they brought in significant out of prison.
Okay. However many there are. Well, honestly, this becomes a convoluted issue all throughout Scripture. Because now we have Manasseh, and so you'll never hear me definitively say when there's 12 and when there's 13, sometimes there's 11, because frankly I'm confused by a lot of it. Because sometimes Dan's not mentioned, sometimes, when you talk about the inheritance, 12 tribes are mentioned, but it includes Manasseh and Ephraim, but it doesn't include Dan, or the Levites. Other times when the list doesn't, like in Revelation, doesn't list Dan. So, hence my always pausing for a moment. But you can now be the tribe police back there in the back row. So, anyways, however many there were under order, they were in order, and so hence the men marveled one at another. And he took and sent messes unto them from before him, that is, portions. But Benjamin's mess was 5 times as much as any of theirs, and this is probably the first proper meal they've had in a long time. They've been at home eating eating almonds, eating whatever's on that list back there. Can you get sick of almonds after a while? Can we honey roast some of these things? Because there was honey in there. But Benjamin's mess was 5 times as much as any of theirs, and they drank and were merry with him. 3 chapters. Oh, you can't do the 3 symbol anymore. 3 chapters. Did you all hear about that? That's how stupid we've gotten. Doing this apparently now is some sort of white supremacy symbol, and so this guy on Jeopardy, when he won his first one, did this. When he won his second one, did this. But nobody knew anything about it. When he won his third, he did this, and they tried to cancel him. We've gotten so stupid. We've gotten idiotic. Check. Just the fact that Simeon was in the group without Joseph being present and didn't say anything leads me to believe that he was in prison the whole time. He did sell him off. And then also, who decided it was Simeon, right? Because that wasn't shown either. I think he was in prison. Do you think differently? And they're about to get messed with for another couple chapters. And again, the next couple weeks we could just be reading a lot. But we're getting towards the end of Genesis. What do you want to do next? You want to get into Exodus? There's some rough spots in there. Woo, rough spots. Talk about Moses, talk about Ephraim. What was Miriam? There's some good stuff to talk about. I eventually want to get to talk about kingdoms. Kingdom of God, kingdom of heaven. We can just make that in between and then hit it after that. Yeah, let's do Exodus after that. I've never done a study of the areas where they were. I don't know where Mount Sinai was, do you? I know it was in Arabia. That's it. Matter of fact, if you look back at your maps, there's probably a point on there that says Sinai with a question mark. Of course, then we can talk about crossing the Red Sea finally in context. Then we can bring up the videos of 90-degree angles on the bottom of the Red Sea that can only be produced by man-made objects, and there's things that look like wagon wheels down there. Yeah, somebody planted them, right? You want to do that? What? Photoshop. All right, any other questions? All right, so Sunday, don't forget, we're going to be barbecuing right after. When I say barbecuing, hamburgers, chicken. We're not barbecuing, well, unless you want to bring some ribs or something, you can. Bring a side dish of some sort or a dessert. Lisa's bringing bottled water, canned sodas. So if you want to bring something with Eno's in it, you're going to have to bring it yourself. Should we have a powdered thing here? Should we have one here? What? Amino powder?
I can bring one for that group.
You'll bring one? We'll bring a bottle of water for
Great
it.
for watermelon.
Watermelon.
And I'm going to order that here on
go ahead and pray. We'll get going. Father, again, we thank you for our time